Good morning, humble practitioners. It's Lynn, Shuck, and we are back again. We're going to talk about sitting on the floor. We've talked about sitting on a chair. We're going to talk about sitting on the floor. It would be very helpful if at some point you have a person who can look at you and see how you line up. Many of us find ourselves needing to sit on the ground or the floor at some point, whether it's in yoga class or trying to meditate. Maybe you have small children or grandchildren that you want to be on the ground with, because children like to be on the ground. And maybe you're just at a picnic out in a park and that's where you're going to be, out on the blanket, sitting on the ground. How do you make that better for yourself? So let me show you a little tiny thing on my skeleton here. She needs a name, by the way. It is a she. Right here, let me put her in front of me, then you can see her against the red of my sweater. Right here, these bones come down to these two little kind of pointy parts. In the back of the pelvis, you can see the sacrum and the tailbone, and then there's these little pointy parts right down here. They're called sit bones commonly, and that's because you sit on them. And you should actually be able to feel them while you're sitting. So that's the first thing you should check. Thank you very much. If you're sitting cross-legged, can you feel your sit bones on the floor? Are you back behind them towards your tailbone? The next thing you can check is when you sit cross-legged, how high are your knees? Now right now my knees are higher than my waist, and that should not be. So that's a sign that something's not right in how I'm sitting. Doesn't matter that I look really vertical. The fact that my body's very upright but my knees are too high means I'm overusing my hip flexors to hold myself up. Sitting shouldn't be a lot of muscular effort. The spine should stack. Now for those of you who are very, very flexible and are capable of coming into full lotus where you bring both feet up, you don't have to worry about this, because that purposefully puts the skeleton in a position for you to sit upright without overusing hip flexors or back muscles. So this is really for those of us who can't sit like that. Now if you have a person who can look at you, what you want them to see is, where do your shoulders line up with your hips? That's the first thing they want to look at. Are they back behind the hips, which means you're more toward the tailbone or even toward the sacrum? Are they right over the hips? Are they forward of the hips? This is actually problematic. It looks really good, but it's not. Because they're so far forward, I'm tightening these hip flexors even more, and that's going to cause problems in the long run for anything that requires me to have full range of motion at my hip and thigh. So if the shoulders are above the hips, is the spine rounding back, which curves the upper part, makes the head go forward, which tightens the back of the neck? Is the spine upright with a curve at the back of the waist? So if you can see right now, I am overworking my hip flexors to do this, but the curve goes toward the front of my body, not flat, not rounded the other way. You want to have curve in the spine. Knees should not be this high though. So what do? Now you know whether you're too far back or too far forward, you're overusing hip flexors, your spine doesn't have curve in it. How do you fix this? The first thing is to just try lifting the hips a little bit off the floor. If you're in a yoga studio or you're at home and have a throw blanket from your couch, take your blanket, fold it up pretty thick, and put it under your pelvis. Already you can see my knees drop down a lot. Now, my shoulders went forward, didn't they? So I'm still overusing hip flexors. They've gotten so tight from trying to hold me up, I'm too far forward now. So what if I go higher? So whether you're back too far or forward too far, go higher. Try that. So I'm gonna fold this again. It's getting a little better. Shoulders came back without thinking too much about it. It's still not my favorite. It still doesn't feel light and effortless, but it's close. Frankly, what I really like is to grab a yoga block. You can sit on it this way. So this one's about 4 inches thick and I'm sitting on the 4-inch width. Or I could turn it even higher to where it's 6 inches high. You actually don't need a lot under those sit bones. There's plenty of surface area on the block. And you can see that now my spine has all its curves. I'm feeling the ease of sitting here. My knees have dropped down. I will let you know that I changed my foot position as I got higher because it started to feel comfortable. Rather than cross at the ankles, my knees are still lower than my waist, pulled my feet further apart and really let my knees drop down. Now I have 3 points of balance. What if this isn't comfortable? What if this is too hard on your knees? What if you came to a squat? Now, squatting breaks the rule of knees higher than waist, doesn't it? However, because your hips are higher than your feet, it still works. So if this is comfortable, you can squat. Another possibility is kneeling. And when you kneel, you want to put a block between your feet, or even 2 blocks between your feet, or roll up a blanket between your feet, something to lift the pelvis. Again, we get knees headed down. This can be hard on some people's ankles. You can take another blanket or towel and roll it under the ankle to support the ankle so they don't have to go flat. So those are a variety of options. This is not my favorite. It's pretty comfortable. It used to be the only way I could sit to meditate. My favorite truly is the block 6 inches high and my knees wide. That's my current favorite. And it allows me to sit on the ground. If I'm out at a picnic, I do not usually have yoga blocks with me, but I will try and find an extra blanket to sit on, or roll up my sweatshirt or a jacket to sit on it. It makes all the difference, and then I can survive whatever picnic or little kid that I'm playing with, or if I'm meditating or practicing yoga, I can sit quietly and easily. Sitting should be easy. Take the time to get the pelvis as high as you need to so that you can sit comfortably. All right, play with this for the next week. See what happens. Tell me about it on the Facebook page. I really would love to hear. Tell me about it here on YouTube. I can hear it here too. And I will see you next week.